It's the Redirect Podcast. Search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
Welcome to episode 20 of the Redirect Podcast. I'm Jason Dodge, founder of Black Truck Media and Marketing. Welcomed again by Patrick and Ashley from the Black Truck team. Welcome, gang, to the 20th episode of recording this here podcast.
It's been an experience. Fun.
Yeah. So instead of sharing a lot of in-depth, search industry news and things like that, we thought that we would use this time for the 20th episode to share kind of some ins and outs of podcasting. So tips on how to get started in podcasting, because I think it's a lot easier than most people think. Mm-hmm. The kind of what the positives that can come out of it from an SEO perspective, and then how to use podcasting for SEO and inbound marketing too. So I think there's a lot that can be done from content generation, curation, distribution, that type of thing. So I think I'll go ahead and lead off here. But we started this podcast back in, we officially released it to the public in July. But we front-loaded or back-loaded, I don't know how you want to say that, with, I think we went live with five episodes?
I think
was it more than that?
7
Oh,
that
wow.
we started
Crazy.
with, yeah.
I think a tip right out of the gate was, and this was something that was provided to me by someone else when we were first talking about it, was if you're going to launch a podcast, you need to record a pilot. You need to hear how it sounds. You need to make adjustments based on that. And obviously it's going to get better as you go along. Mm-hmm. But the notion is that if someone listens to your pilot or listens to the first 2, they're going to want to hear more. So don't just record one and then wait and record another one, where if you record multiples, then it gives your audience more to listen to. So a little bit of backstory about why we created the Redirect Podcast is we meet weekly as a team, and at the end of the week, typically we try and record on Fridays, and it's less businessy, project focused, and more focused and centered around, hey, what are you reading? Industry news are the things that we need to keep tabs on, be aware of, or just general interesting items. And it was a way to share that just in a meeting format, and decided, well, what would happen if we pressed record on this? So that's really how the Redirect Podcast came to be. So what's your experience been with it so far, either of you? I'm just curious. I think share that. That would be helpful for other people to know.
Yeah. I frequently don't know how to start talking, apparently. So you've probably noticed that if you've been listening in on other episodes. But it's been a really good experience to practice talking in front of a microphone too. Like, now we're at episode 20, so I should be a little more seasoned maybe at this point. But
there's always that second of anxiety going, oh, we got to record.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of it, is that we record everything in one take. So yeah. I think there's, and that's good because it keeps, our production costs low, and, we're not claiming to be super fancy about this at this point. But so there's a little bit of pressure about, like, oh, I gotta say everything right the first time.
Yeah, there's no, I think we've restarted like inside of 1 minute before. We've never gone past like screwed that up. Can we just hit pause and edit that part? I was like, no, there's no editing. This is it.
And I think everybody is really comfortable. It takes a little bit to get used to, but at the end of the day, we are having just a conversation. It's more or less a meeting. We're having a conversation. That's the important part. Yeah. We kind of established some ground rules up front, and I think that as you're looking to create a podcast, go into it with the go into it with the notion that nobody's going to listen to it. I think the same thing when you're blogging, right? Like, well, who's going to read this?
Everybody.
Everybody. I mean, you don't know that, so don't go into it with the notion of, I'm going to blog and tons of people are going to read it. No, blog for the right reasons. Record a podcast for the right reasons. We have information and opinions on things in the search marketing space that we want to share. We're going to read pieces of news that, that headline was completely misleading and here's what it really means, you know? So our rules that we outlined from the get-go were it's okay maybe to reference something that any one of the team members is leading or working on at the time, but just from an anonymity perspective, we don't name any names of our clients or specific projects and details and things like that we're working on. So I think it's okay to reference experiences, but if you want to be, if you want to kind of be on the up and up, I would say there's no reason to mention like a client type name. And our recording setup is pretty simple. We do it in our conference room in our office. It is echoey, so we try and compensate that by a little bit of adjustments on this end here. I say that on this end because I'm the one running the recording machine. We record in GarageBand. Shocker, but there's a lot of people out there that record podcasts in GarageBand. There's a lot of information in communities that support recording in GarageBand. Your adjustments are just fine. The mic will make everything, but we record on like, what is this thing? Snowball.
Black ice.
Nothing fancy. This is kind of like an intro to podcasting microphone, USB microphone. I think, what are they, like $50, $75? They're not, this is not a high-end microphone at all. Certainly pros and cons to the microphone. Certainly pros and cons to recording in GarageBand. The Snowball microphones, the USB mics, they're like a single identity. So technically, if we wanted to have multiple mics, you have to work with Snowball and get them so that they're different identities or different channels. So they'll record easier on different layers. They'll be recognized by a Mac as different input channels. So someday down the road, if we wanted to add a mic, we just have to work with Snowball to make sure that that's taken care of. So real low cost of entry, so the barrier to entry is really low. If you are a Mac user, GarageBand is pre-installed. It's narration vocal. That's the input. Press record, start playing around, make adjustments, dial it into your environment. I think that's just quick tips on this end here.
To piggyback off your notion of having our internal rule here as we make this, maybe more generic way of saying it for people wanting to start a podcast, not necessarily related to the style we're doing it, is have a focus. Have the rule be that there's always a focus. And this is simple for us. It's not. We're kind of taking what we're already doing and just refining it, but we have the focus. The focus is we're going to discuss what we're reading, and we're not going to segue into other non-related things or just like.
Although that does happen.
Yeah,
sometimes.
It does happen, but we always still tie it together. You know, I've listened to podcasts before and other ones where like roundtable style stuff, and it just gets lost. It gets lost, and it's not part of the main focus. And then our goal here is to not really have a goal. It's just to keep doing what we're doing and seeing people notice. And that's how we're having that. Another accountability thing for me is that this has caused me to have a better memory retention. You know, that's
a really great point.
As Jason said, we were already doing this as a way to just touch base with what have you been reading? You know, it's causing me to remember what I'm reading rather than, I think we're guilty of getting about 4 or 5 paragraphs into an article going, yeah, okay, and moving on. Now I'm really developing thought processes behind what I'm reading and saying, like, is this something that's going to be worth sharing? And is this something that I want to remember? And I go into every SEO article or marketing article I'm reading about, I need to really focus on this and remember this. And that's causing me to retain more.
And part of that, too, is that we type up our notes after recording and make that into a blog post. So I think that part of the retention, too, is coming from being able to not only remember it enough to articulate it in the podcast, but then also to be able to put it into terms that people can read on the blog post later. So I think that's a good point, the memory retention. I feel like I probably those concepts that we're talking about stick with me much more because there's not only are we individually reading it, we're sharing it here, and then we're all synthesizing that to put into our blog post too.
So I think that's the segue there is to maybe we can get to the core of why podcasts. We've been able to share our why as to why we do the Redirect podcast every week. Main reason is more or less thought leadership, sharing knowledge, talking with no the outcome. The goal isn't lead generation and biz dev opportunities for Black Truck Media and Marketing. We're sharing information, helping the greater good of the search community, hopefully, and individuals who are interested in it. The other side of it that can come out of it is the content that we create about it, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I think making sure you define your why and why you're podcasting is key. And going back to Pat's point on what's your mission, what's the direction, staying focused. I found a really great study. It's journalism.org, so it's kind of a combination of Pew Research Center, so Edison Research, Triton Digital. There's a study that was done. It's called The Infinite Dial, a 2017 piece, so very new, very relevant, that looks back at the percentage of podcast listeners in America, so about 2006 up to current. And in 2017, 4 in 10 Americans ages 12 or older have listened to a podcast. So, and 24% of those have listened in the past month. So that's up from 9% in 2008. So we go from 9% to almost a quarter are listening to podcasts in kind of an ongoing fashion. So average weekly unique users who download NPR podcasts, which includes some of the most popular podcasts in iTunes, Up First, TED Radio Hour, there's a number of them here. But that rose from 2.5 million in 2015 to 3.5 million in 2016. So NPR, we'd love to, let's get featured on your podcast role, but it is really staggering the growth of podcasts. I can remember at a previous agency I was at. This is well before Black Truck. This was 2005-ish, 2006. We were just scratching the surface on podcasts and had a recording studio, and the iPod and being able to subscribe to podcasts was new. And then we went through this phase of like, who the hell wanted to listen to podcasts? And then all of a sudden, this explosion in the past, it seems 2 or 3 years, the growth of podcasts and people subscribing to it. And it's almost like it's like families used to do. You sat down and you listened to the radio. You didn't tune into television, broadcast TV. You sat around the radio.
Another, I guess it's different, is audiobooks. I remember taking road trips and going to the audiobook store and renting audiobooks that had 20 CDs, and now it's just on your phone. It's the same way with podcasts. I do podcasts for my kids sometimes when we road trip, and we'll listen to various nursery rhymes via podcast. And now, back in the day, that could have been just CDs, and now it's didn't like that. You can change the channel to a new podcast while you're driving. It's the ease of availability, I think, is bringing this insurgency back to it. And same thing with the ease of making. We just talked about the tools that we use, but technically we could just do it from our phone.
Yeah, that's very true.
Without doing anything else, just set our phone on the table and do it from there.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is kind of going off of what you just said, but I think you have mentioned that you listen to podcasts on your commute often, and I think podcasts have created a way for listeners to find content that they're interested in and want to listen to, and be able to customize, what they're listening to, whether they're in the car or wherever, rather than listening to the radio where they might get the commercials and that sort of thing. So,
that's a good point. So we talked about kind of some of the tools that we use to record and edit, and by no means, again, we do this in one take, one shot, one deal. There are no edits. So I suppose if the F-bomb's dropped, it's in there. But I think the distribution side of it is really key, and that was a hard one to kind of figure out, because you have to, in order to get your podcast to go through iTunes and other providers like Stitcher and things like that. So iTunes, obviously, we all know it as the Apple, the iOS side of things. Stitcher is highly used in the Android market. All of those are going to be based off of an RSS feed of your podcast. So you need some sort of channel to be able to develop the RSS feed. And so we use SoundCloud. For better or for worse, I think everybody kind of freaked out about their financial troubles, but we're invested in them. We do the pro plan with them, and that allows us to create an RSS feed. So we record in GarageBand, export to an MP3, upload to SoundCloud, and then from there it gets distributed automatically to iTunes and Stitcher. There's definitely some other applications out there, I think Podbean and a few others that you can look at to create RSS feeds that are very reasonable. There is a feature I know in GarageBand to export right from GarageBand to SoundCloud and to iTunes. I choose to go a little bit more manual route, so I can make sure that everything is okay and we don't have to do any audio adjusting or mixing. But another, I guess, pro tip is we have a great intro and outro. Make it sound professional, use some royalty-free music, have a solid intro, solid outro, so everything sounds real professional and tight.
We had a contact that does that for a living.
Yeah,
so
it was easy
for us to source it.
Yeah.
That if anything, I'd say that's our fanciest element is our intro and outro. Mm-hmm. But we got lucky in that you, Jason, have a contact that does that.
Yeah.
And so you slid them some
bonus. It works out. I think if you can create that, even if you're creating it yourself, as like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to record a bunch of potential intros and then choose one and use that, and I'm going to record a bunch of outros and choose one and use that matches. I think that's pretty easy too. We could have easily created that ourselves too.
Yeah, and I think you had said something too that's important, is royalty free. That could bite you in the butt later on.
Nobody's using a Zeppelin track on the intro of the Redirect podcast. So Ashley, talk to me about let's talk about distribution real quick, and distribution from what do I do with my podcast once I've produced it? What are some main things that I know that we primarily do, or that we've seen others do, that maybe we've emulated, we've seen work, or have not seen work?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we create a blog post for every podcast episode. So each of us will type up our notes about what we talked about and what came up in conversation. So that blog post lives on our website, and that is shared to our social media channels. And then a different way of doing it that I've seen is transcriptions of podcasts, which that's going to cost you some money, but that can be added to a page with your podcast audio, so that text that is an exact transcription of what you talked about in the podcast is there. And I think that there's a lot of strength in that, because I feel like there's maybe some things that come up in our conversation that doesn't get translated into our blog posts. So I feel like some things are getting missed if people aren't actually listening to the podcast, which is kind of why we do it in a way. But also any text representation of your podcast that you can have is going to help to get picked up when people are doing searches. And maybe
we'll have to test out the transcription. Like the team at Moz uses for Whiteboard Friday. So every time they record one, that Rand records one, there is the post that's essentially produced from that is some sort of a transcription application or service they're using. But I do think that our show notes, if you hear us reference in the show notes, it's usually we're linking to the article that maybe we found of value, but there's actually some really even more valuable items that come out of that. It's not just giving credit to, the SEM post or Search Engine Roundtable or somebody like that. It's actually, this is the concept, this is the article that kind of helped spark that idea. And oh, by the way, here's 4 key tips, or here's our take on it. Here's what this really means. Mm-hmm. It's almost like our version of, too long did not read. So think about that. So that's really good though.
Yeah. And then this isn't something that we necessarily do right now, but I've seen in various industry resources repurposing your content. So talking about using an old blog post and making a podcast out of it or based on it. And then you could also do sound bites or quotations from your podcast and post those to social media, that sort of thing. So that's another way to distribute and kind of share in a different way, too.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I suppose I have seen people do a video recording of their podcast, too. Yeah. So they kind of double up and maybe go Facebook Live while they're recording. We've toyed with that idea. What kind of engagement would we get and use it as a test platform?
We will do that at some point, by the way. So stay tuned. I'm determined to do that. To
do Facebook Live and record at the same time and see if you can kind of cross-platform, cross-channel. I'm not a big fan of, I'm not going to sit down personally and listen to something on YouTube, just because maybe back to Patrick's point, like I listen to podcasts in the car or plugged in while mowing the lawn or something like that. So it's another opportunity to learn or be entertained, that type of thing. You can't do that with something you've recorded on YouTube on a mobile device. It's not going to happen. Or Facebook. So I think podcasting still fills that void that isn't there. In terms of distribution, we take and we embed the SoundCloud player, so you can listen on our site to the podcast. But I would say, looking at stats and looking at even on-page data from Google Analytics, at least right now, the majority of those listens are happening probably in-app. They're not happening on the site. They're not happening, kind of in that embedded plugin. And I'd be willing to bet that's the majority of the rule. Although you mentioned there's a couple podcasts that you listen to, Patrick, that their site, that's all it is their site is all about podcasts.
Right.
So it's all geared towards that. And I would assume that has a pretty high listenership on their site too. So one thing we haven't tested though is we have not tested sending people directly to the SoundCloud link either in social. Right? We've always primarily sent people to.
Mostly, yeah. I think I have done a couple links to SoundCloud, but not enough to really drive a lot of traffic, I think. So.
But that's another interesting test you can do too. So after you have produced a few and you feel comfortable with it, maybe you have the content living on your site as well as the podcast itself, share both of them, see which one you might get more engagement out of, and see kind of where people go from there, because that might be your distribution method. Also, in the description, you can drop a link into the description of your podcast back to your site for your blog post, for the show notes. So you're kind of creating a really great loop back to your site, feeding content to individuals. So it's been really good. It's been a lot of fun. 20. It doesn't seem like 20 episodes that we have recorded. I mean. So I'm looking forward to recording 20 more.
Right. See how it goes. So far, we're doing pretty good. Our subscribers are somewhere between 1 million and 0.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's like, this is rabid fans.
Right. Mm-hmm. For real.
Yep. Like pounding on the doors to want us to produce more. So, this that's great. Again, we understand what our focus is of this podcast. We understand just really what we're using it for as a vehicle to be able to talk and share. I think, Patrick, to your point, it's a way to also absorb the information ourselves more and deeper. It gets us all more comfortable speaking, whether that's for public speaking, whether that's just speaking about more technical leveled items. How do we explain those to other people? So I think it helps all the way around. Plus, it gives us additional content. I mean, we're feeding our blog posts, every week with this content too. So we'll make sure that we post up our top tips to get started in podcasting, ways to distribute it, what it can mean to SEO. I think kind of in closing, we were looking at analytics stats kind of short term, from July, but we definitely see some of those even most recent posts that are related to a podcast. We do see those as being indexed and driving traffic from organic search. So it does happen. It all is based around the topic and what's being included in the text there. So other than that, do you guys have anything else you want to share?
I don't.
All right.
No, but it's been fun.
Yeah. In closing, what I think big things are, don't take it too serious.
Yeah,
I would say.
Have fun. Don't lose sleep over it.
Yep. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to stumble. There's no sense. I mean, if you're 20 minutes in, there's no sense in re-recording or trying to edit that crap out. Just
and accept the fact that you don't like the sound of your voice.
Yeah. No. Nobody loves the sound of their voice as much as they don't love themselves on camera.
Right.
So just move forward with it. Hit record. Move forward with it. Do a little bit of adjusting and get it out there. And so hopefully everyone has enjoyed it up to this point, and hopefully we get to listen to more podcasts that people are creating outside of this. So until next time, we'll be back to our regular scheduled program of sharing more search industry insights and tips. Take care and good luck.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.